Anyatta Sikapadani Silena Sugatin Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Nibhutin Yanti Tasma Silang Visodhaye.
Okay. Got the most important part done. Now we can all go back home again. The sila is what matters, right? Sila is the foundation of this path, and if we can practice the sila properly, everything else kind of falls into place, including the meditation, which we're going to do next. So I think we might as well just get into the meditation straight away. But before we do that, maybe welcome everyone. Nice to see you all again. Nice to be in Sydney. Nice to see so many good old friends. And it's wonderful to be able to be with people when we can do Dhamma together. Yeah, this is kind of one of the best kind of company, the Kalyana Mittas that we have on this path. So for that reason, it's wonderful to be here in Sydney. It's wonderful to be here because we're doing something good together that we really can rejoice in. So before I say anything more, let's just do a little bit of meditation just to get ready. Already the precepts chanting is a bit like meditation already, but let's try a little bit more deeply if we can. So sit comfortably and close your eyes. And we'll do about half an hour's meditation approximately. And always start out your meditation just by feeling the body to make sure you relax properly, you don't have any pains anywhere, any problems anywhere. Remember, the purpose of meditation is about developing the mind. And so you want to get the body out of the way. So no pains in the body, no indulgence in the body, neither negative nor positive. And then the body kind of fades away into the background. And this is what is meant by the middle way, the Majjhima Patipada in the suttas, where the body just disappears. And just take a lot of time just initially, just to relax, allowing the body to feel really nice and at ease. The more you can relax at the beginning, it is an act of letting go the idea of relaxation, letting go of the will that controls the body, just allowing the body to be at ease. And sometimes just imagine yourself breathing in deeply, especially through a tense muscle or whatever it might be. And then as you breathe out, you let go. And you kind of feel the ease of the body gradually arising, allowing the world to fade away into the rear side window, mirror. And the initial parts of meditation is really about learning to go with the flow of things, not trying to control anything, not having any ideas about right and wrong, but going with the flow, allowing things to be without resistance. And the idea here is that when you do that, you actually allow the mindfulness to arise. And without mindfulness, there is no meditation practice. So allow things to flow along. You are just the observer. You have this beautiful simile of being like a passenger on the train, and you allow the scenery to change. You're just there, present, not controlling, but allowing things to be. And just allow the world to fade away into the back window again and just disappear. It takes a bit of time for this to happen, but as the world fades away, try to feel that freedom of obligations that you have right now. No responsibilities, no house, no work, no family, nothing at all except for you and peace. And what a wonderful thing that is to hang out just with peace and nothing else in the whole world. And try to see the beauty of this. The more you understand the power and the beauty of meditation, the more the mind inclines in that way. So seeing this as positive and nice is critical for the success in meditation practice. and to give the meditation that bit of extra power, it is important to give rise to a bit of gladness and joy in the mind. And sometimes that is very simple thing to do. Sometimes not, but sometimes it is. And a very easy way of doing this is just to rejoice in being here today. Rejoice in the fact that today you are in the presence of the Buddha, you are in the presence of the Sangha, you're also in the presence of all these wonderful Kalyana Mittas around you. In fact, everyone I just talked about is a Kalyana Mitta. And what a wonderful thing that is. And knowing how difficult it is to get in touch with the Dhamma in the world, have a sense of gratitude that you're able to be here today, that somehow you've happened on to this Buddhist path, whatever might be the reason for that. There's a very profound reasons for having gratitude for this. And gratitude and meditation is a beautiful combination that takes the meditation forward. So feel that sense of wonder, a sense of beautiful companionship, and allow the mind to feel a sense of ease and peace as a consequence. Okay, so we're coming close to the end. Before we come to the end, just take a few moments just to reflect on the meditation. And if you feel a bit more peaceful, mindful, whatever it might be, ask yourself why that is the case. Try to understand this process of meditation. That means the meditation is over. So please come out and we'll start with the Dhamma. Nice bell. So thank you for this. Someone brought. There you are, Tina. Okay. So thank you for bringing the bell. This has a nice elephant on it. Kind of elephant. It's a bit weird. This elephant. Have you looked at the elephant? Interesting. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Okay, everyone. So let's start with the get down to what we are here for. So welcome to all the latecomers. That's good. So this is really nice. I was just given this enormous printout of the suttas. And it's nice, right? And they even have made the Pali and the English on opposite sides. It's kind of really, this is to my liking. It's really, really cool. So thank you so much for organizing this. I think I may just read the Pali out for you, and then you can take home the Pali. Does that make sense? It's interesting. One of the kind of nice things about the going back to the source and dealing with the Pali, when you deal with the Pali, very often you come even closer to the word of the Buddha. So it's actually quite nice to have some understanding of Pali. It is not required, which is good news for most of us because we don't really have time to learn the Pali. But a teacher should ideally know a bit of Pali because then you can go to the source and you have better understanding of what is going on. But it's not really required. These days we have some wonderful translations. And one of the reasons, the main reason I'm actually here in Sydney is because I was invited to the book launch that's happening next weekend. Deepika, are you here? Where are you? There you are. Okay, hello Deepika. Okay, good. And that book launch is basically a launching of the translation of the suttas. And that is interesting because I was saying yesterday, not really tongue-in-cheek, but actually quite seriously, that the book launch of the suttas of the translation into English, this is the most important event in Australian history. Is that true? It's probably true, right? This is the most important event in Australian history. And that's this is what it means to understand the power of the suttas. This is what it means to understand the Buddha, what the Buddha really was about. That this really is just about as important as anything gets. If you want to know what is the most important literature in human history, from the dawn of history until the present day, the most important literature in human history, all these years, all this time we've been around, is, to my opinion, the Pali Suttas. A large part of humanity will disagree with that, but to my mind, that's because they are wrong. That's a terrible thing to say. Maybe I'm just conceited, but anyway, that's what I think. And so because of that, what I want to help you to give access to during this weekend that we're going to be here, I want to give you access to the most important literature in the history of humankind. That is really what this is about. Yes, this is incredibly important. It is like going to the very heart of the meaning of life, the meaning of existence itself, what human life is about. This is what this concerns. And so it's extremely interesting, extremely exciting. If you really understand what this is about, your hair would be standing on end right now. Just looking and see if your hair is standing on end now. Okay, not so many, but anyway, you get the idea, right? This is really significant. And so, one of the most important things about these suttas is that they give you access to right view. Yeah, it's about seeing the world in the right way. And of course, because of the Buddha is the one who sees the world in the right way, first of all. That is what the awakening experience of the Buddha is about, is actually understanding the nature of the world, the nature of reality. And then the Buddha teaches the world to give us also access to that same kind of right view. This is really what the suttas are about, accessing right view. So when you see the Pali Canon, whether it is an English translation, or it is in the original Pali, or it is in Sinhala, or it is in Hindi, or it is in Chinese, you all come from different kind of backgrounds, yeah? That is the access to this right view. The whole thing really is just about right view. And when we have that right view, then we can start to live with wisdom. Then we can start to make good decisions. If you haven't got right view about things, how can you possibly make good decisions in your life? It is impossible, because when you are deluded, the very nature of delusion means that you make bad decisions. So right view is the foundation for making good decisions. And if we believe that the Buddha was the greatest spiritual master in human history, and he was the one who was able to break through the veil of delusion, break through the mass of ignorance, split asunder the mass of ignorance, as it says in the suttas. If you really believe that, then of course the Buddha is also the greatest. He is the person who actually made this whole thing accessible to us, and that is why this literature is the most important literature in human history. And that kind of, when you start to understand this, it makes you kind of tremble a little bit, because it is so important. Imagine me. I was actually born in Norway. I can't remember if Tina mentioned that before. Maybe she mentioned that or not. But I was born in this kind of country really far away, with the snow and ice. Very different. Many of you come from Sri Lankan origin, or even if you're born in Sydney, there's not so much snow and ice here in Sydney. I was born in this far away country. No Buddhists around, right? There was nothing really going on in Norway. There was just kind of very homogeneous Norwegian culture. Not even Christian. It's like a post-Christian culture. All they're interested in is kind of BMWs and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's like a materialist culture. People are interested in material things. And yet, when you hear the Dhamma, it kind of penetrates. So even someone like me, who was kind of really far away from the Dhamma, somehow when you hear these words, there's something very powerful going on here. And this is when the Dhamma this is why we want to spread this word into the world of this teaching, precisely because it speaks directly to the human heart. And those people who have a little bit of wisdom, it will open their eyes and you will see something else. So this is extraordinarily interesting. This is all about right view, and it is right view that this retreat will focus on, so we can see the world in the right way. And the moment you see the view in the right way, the Noble Eightfold Path, the whole practice unfolds with that as the foundation. And that is why when you see the suttas, when you see the Noble Eightfold Path, it begins with right view. That's always the beginning. It starts, if you have no right view, you're not going to be here. So congratulations, you already have a little bit of right view. So well done. That's why you're here. Otherwise you wouldn't bother coming here. So already the foundation is there. And as I was saying yesterday, one way of thinking about the Buddhist path is as the gradual purification of right view. From the very initial stage, all the way to the final right view that comes when you reach the awakening experience at the very end. It's a gradual awakening, a gradual clarification of the mind, getting more and more clear about the nature of reality, stage by stage, yeah? So it's like the purification of view, the view kind of slowly, your mind expanding, seeing the world anew with fresh eyes in a new way, until eventually you have the final breakthrough. So that's a nice way of thinking about the Buddhist path, as the gradual development of that right view. Yeah, and to do that, what do we have to do? To do that, we have to contemplate the suttas. We have to reflect on what the Buddha was talking about. And this is what you see here in many places in the suttas. It is not just about reading the suttas. It is not just kind of understanding the word of the Buddha and say, yeah, I believe in rebirth, I got right view. Wrong. You haven't got right view just because you believe in rebirth. That is only the foundation of right view. Actually, to be able to have right view, you have to understand the consequence of ideas like rebirth. What are the consequences of that? What does it mean in my life? What does it mean in terms of the spiritual path? How can you make the idea of rebirth, of karma, the fact that there is a Buddha in the world, all of these things, how can you make that idea so powerful that it motivates you and drives you on the Noble Eightfold Path? That is the idea. You want to make a felt experience. And when the idea of rebirth, you understand what is at stake. It becomes an emotional driver, and emotional drivers are the most important parts of this Buddhist path, because that is what motivates us as human beings. Intellectual ideas are kind of cold. Intellectual ideas are useful to some extent, but it is the emotional thing that drives us as human beings. We are driven by desires and cravings. Why are you here today? Because of some kind of desire, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be here. Why am I here today? Some kind of desire, yeah. Why? Because it's nice to share the Dhamma. It's a kind of a good desire, but desire are the driving force of human beings, and that's why we're here. And so this is going to be the focus on the retreat, and then some of the consequences of having that right view. And I want to approach it from the point of view of the Buddha himself. And one of the things that always struck me when I was reading the suttas is that there is a large number of suttas that talks about the life of the Buddha before his awakening. Have you noticed that? Yeah, this is kind of the suttas where the Buddha talks about what he did before his awakening. Yeah, how he kind of, the stories, and this is part of the problem. Many of you have probably grown up in a Buddhist culture. Yeah, some of you are obviously from Australia, but some of you kind of maybe started your life from a Buddhist culture. And one of the dangers of growing up in the Buddhist culture is that you hear a lot of stories, but you don't necessarily get access to the suttas directly. I know this because I know so many Buddhists now. Yeah, I know how this kind of works out in a Buddhist culture. So it's a good start, but then we want to take it one step further. And that one step further is to understand things from the point of view of the Buddha. And so the Buddha tells us what it was like to be the Buddha to be. Yeah, the title here is How to Practice Like the Buddha to Be, because before he was the Buddha to be. Yeah, that's kind of the idea here. Yeah, and then Buddha to be, becoming more closer and closer to Buddha, and one day he becomes the Buddha. So the Buddha, in all of these suttas, he explains what he did, the things that he did to enable himself to reach that awakening. And I always found that very interesting. Why does the Buddha focus on his own life? And this is a very powerful thing to understand why he does that. Because one of the problems in Buddhism very often is that very often we elevate the Buddha in kind of the wrong way. Yeah, the more you look at the way the history of Buddhism works, if you look at kind of how the Buddha has been changed over time, the Buddha becomes more and more supernatural, more and more marvelous, more and more amazing, until he becomes the Dhammakaya, or something kind of a universal force for good or something like that. And gradually we lose touch of the Buddha as a human being. The Buddha becomes something else. He becomes something different from us, something we can't really relate to anymore. But the point of the Buddha, the reason why the Buddha teaches his own life in the suttas, is because he's telling us, this is what I did, and you should follow in my footsteps, and you should practice in the way that I practiced. This is the whole point of these suttas. Yeah, and of course, the reason why that works is because the Buddha was a human being. He was just like us, right? And he practiced in this way. And then we can now follow in his footsteps precisely because we have the same problems, the same issues in our life that the Buddha had before his own awakening. This is a very important point of view, and sometimes it gets lost. It gets lost because we tend to put the Buddha on the wrong kind of pedestal. The Buddha becomes more like a god. He becomes something like a universal principle. He becomes something that is really completely out of reach, that we have no connection anymore to. And if the Buddha practiced in one way, it's irrelevant to us because the Buddha is fundamentally different from us. It is only when we see the Buddha as a human being, it is only then that these suttas actually become meaningful. Because then he teaches about his own life and he's saying, you should do the same thing here. So this is actually very important. And that is not diminishing the Buddha at all. In fact, I would say it is the opposite. Because if it is possible to take the ordinary human condition, the defiled mind, all the problems that we have, all the wrong views that we have, all the silly desires that we have, all the mistakes that we do in our lives, and we're able to take this mind, which sometimes is so crazy, does all these weird things, and purify it completely and rise above the human condition. To me, that is what is precisely what is so marvelous. This is what is so beautiful, and it is so inspiring because it means that we have the opportunity to do the same thing. And so this is kind of the idea here. The Buddha is like a human being perfected, and that is what is so special about the Buddha, and this is what makes these teachings so incredibly powerful. And so we need to sometimes withdraw a little bit from the more traditional ways of thinking about Buddhism and ask ourselves, who is the Buddha according to these suttas? And then we can take his message on board, and then we can actually practice like the Buddha himself. And what you will see as you start to read these suttas, you will see that the way that the Buddha talks about his own life before his awakening, he actually starts to sound very human. He had a wife. He had a child. He talks about his own defilements. In one of the suttas, the Dveda Vitaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 19. Dveda Vitaka, 2 kinds of thought sutta. He talks about the 3 kinds of bad thoughts. That sounds a bit like us. 3 kinds of bad thoughts. Bit of ill will, a bit of desire. Of course, the Buddha probably didn't have very much of this because otherwise he wouldn't be able to become the Buddha, but he had a little bit of these things. He talks about having wrong views before his awakening. He talks about, and the more you read the suttas, he talks about having difficulties with meditation. We'll come back to this later on. The traditional view of the Buddha is that the Buddha goes to the Bodhi tree. Have many of you been to Bodh Gaya in India? How many have been to Bodh Gaya? Wow. Okay, cool. Okay, many people have been to Bodh Gaya. Me too, by the way. I just should raise my hand. And you go to Bodh Gaya. The traditional story is that the Buddha, he sits down under the Bodhi tree. In the first watch of the night, he recollects his past life. Second watch of the night, he understands the law of karma. The third watch of the night, he achieves awakening here. But actually, when you read the suttas, and we come to this sutta later on, he said he was struggling. He was having his mind having all of these defilements. He was having doubts. He was having excessive energy. And then he says how we kind of overcame these problems. So I think the reality is that this didn't happen in 3 watches of the night. It probably happened over a span of weeks. Maybe months to reach this kind of awakening. Of course, the actual awakening happened quickly, but the process up to that, when you see the suttas, was a long time coming, building up to something more deep and something more powerful. And it's kind of extraordinary. You see the Buddha having these beautiful lights in the mind, and then having trouble with stabilizing them. He says, I lost the light in the mind because defilements are rising. That is just like some of you, right? I'm sure some of you have experienced these lights in the mind that you have during meditation, because this is what happens when you are with good Buddhists. There are people who have these experiences. And in a sense, you too probably having problems with making it stay, yeah? And you think, oh, I'm a terrible meditator, I can't make the light stay here. The Buddha had that problem, for goodness sake. Yeah, you are in really good company here. Isn't that kind of wonderful to think like that? Yeah, you can see that actually we are not that fundamentally different from the Buddha at all. The main difference is just that the Buddha had some very powerful spiritual faculties that enabled him to awaken without a teacher. That is kind of what makes the Buddha so extraordinary here. But the actual problems that we overcome are essentially the same, whether you are the Buddha or you are just an ordinary human being here. Actually, the Buddha was an ordinary human being. We're all in the same boat. And when you start to see this, it gives you a sense of, yes, I can do this too. It gives you a sense of, we are all capable of practicing this path, of reaching the very end, the highest points, of taking the human potential to the highest possibility. This is what this is about. And it gives you a sense of courage, a sense of enthusiasm for this path, because you know you can do it too. Just because you have defilements doesn't mean you can't do it. One of the, I think, sad things on the Buddhist path, people often think, oh, I can't do it. You know, I have so many defilements. Everyone else can, but not me. Never think like that. Yeah, all you need to be able to practice this path is 5 khandhas. Anyone here hasn't got 5 khandhas? If you haven't got 5 khandhas, you may leave now, but otherwise stay. Yeah. If you haven't got the mind, okay, then you are a zombie. So zombies are not, this is not for zombies. But no zombies here, right? Okay, this is a story in the suttas about zombies. I'll tell that later on, not now. But zombies are not suited for meditation practice because meditation practice is about the mind. If you haven't got the mind, it's going to be a problem. So anyone can do this, because remember, this is a natural process. It's about using natural phenomena to purify your mind. Yeah, so if you are a natural person, then it will work on you whether you want to or not. Even if you think you're completely hopeless, it will still work on you. You still become enlightened even if you think you can't become enlightened. That's kind of nice, isn't it? So that is the idea here. So maybe we should start with the suttas before the retreat is over. All right. So we're going to start with just a little introductory sutta. And this is the very first sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya. Yeah, Samyutta Nikaya. Samyutta means connected, and Nikaya means like collections. This is the collection of connected discourses, and this is the very first sutta in that collection. And sometimes the very first sutta is very interesting because it kind of sets the scene for the rest of the collection. It kind of is like an introduction, if you like, the right view, setting the stage, yeah, for the rest of the suttas. And this sutta is called Crossing the Flood, Oga Tarana Sutta. Oga is flood, Tarana means to cross. And it is about how to cross the flood. The flood is a metaphor for samsara, right? Samsara is the round of rebirth and death. And so the idea is to cross this flood of samsaric existence so we can reach the safe shore on the other side. That is kind of the idea here. Yeah, so crossing the flood is this what this is about. I'm a little bit concerned about going for too long because it's nice to have little breaks in between. Maybe we should we have a short break at this point? We're already going for an hour and a half, just to have a chance to stretch your legs a bit and maybe use the toilet or whatever. Is that a nice idea? 5-minute break? Yeah, let's have a 5-minute break, and please make it fairly quick because we have a lot of important suttas to do. So let's come back again at 10 o'clock.